The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here at Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. Hope you're doing all right. As a week from today, it is the bowl game, Nebraska and Boston College. Spend some time, Mark Kraynak en route. We'll say hi to Brandon Vogel from Counter Reed. A lot to get into with Vogues. And then the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, will be with us around 8:30 or so. Appreciate all of you for checking us out. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, KFOR, and he is wearing the mother of all Santa hats. He has gone plaid for us, Mark Kraynak.
I just realized it kind of looks like a Joker.
A little bit.
Like a jester hat.
Yeah.
Oops. Wrong effect.
Very festive. I know what you're going for. Yeah.
Thank you. Hey,
No red coat.
And it's the final Christmas, according to some conspiracy theorists. So I understand your hat too. That's good.
Really?
Good.
Lay this out for me. Or we can get into the portal in Indiana football.
Yeesh.
See, I've been hearing that the world's going to end for my entire life. So the conspiracy theorists have been doing that. Is that the conspiracy theory that the world's going to end, or is it something more fun than that?
Probably. I was just kind of guessing.
Yeah,
I'm sure there is one of those. Like, according to some guy from 8 centuries ago, this is the year. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's one of those going on right now.
Well, Notre Dame fan, not Notre Dame, predicted a absolute killing yesterday, and it ended up being close. Wasn't that close? Let me ask you this real quick. We'll get into Nebraska's get at quarterback, and that's Marcos Davila, which was nice to see on social media last night. With Signetti, does he wear you out? Do you respect what he's done? Are you in the camp of Indiana's absolutely the best con man of college football in this season because of where they ended up at 11-2? Two good teams you played, two beatdowns or blowouts or embarrassments, kind of sort of on national TV, or are you of the subscription that it's all right? Sterling, would you get down, please?
I mean, they check them out. Signetti in Indiana. Well, listen, when they showed their scores last night, you remember that graphic late when they were down 20-3, I believe, before
then
Notre Dame went up 27-3.
Almost dirty backdoor cover you.
Right. So now I see where this vitriol is coming from.
No,
This sudden Signetti hate.
No, I get wore out. I get wore out, fellas, by you can be loud in the room. You can be brash and confident and cocky. You can do that. And he's not changed that personality. He doesn't turn it on and off like a light switch. That's who he is. Going back to media days, being around him a little bit. And then on game day, Elijah, you and I were absolutely enthralled with his game day appearance and just swearing and carrying on. And I don't care other than don't go play so conservative. You're afraid to throw the football, or you're just hanging on for dear life, or you're punting in that moment last night in the fourth quarter. So let your actions match your talk, I guess is what I'm saying. And you just don't always got to be the loudest guy in the room. Sometimes the loudest guy in the room is the weakest guy in the room. And there seems to be some sort of reason as to why it took the guy till he was in his 60s to finally be a head coach. Because
I do think he's the right man, though, for Indiana. Does it rub you
the attention?
Yes. You're in a place where with Indiana football, there's no such thing as bad publicity for you. If they're talking about you, if they're talking about Indiana football, it doesn't matter why. He took them to the playoff this year. Did they deserve to be there? Well, they won the regular season games they needed to win to get there. So you can argue all you want about Bama and Miami and all these other teams.
I'm not ticked they're there. I just want them to show up once they get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reality in the college football playoff. First round games haven't been close. Like, that was the story with the 4-team playoff. It's probably going to continue to be a story with the 12-team playoff. Like, there's going to be other games today that probably aren't very close. I'm looking at you, Clemson. Like, see if you can keep it close to Texas. That's going to happen in the college football playoff. Indiana deserved to be there. He took his moment on the big stage to get people talking about Indiana more, to get people talking about Signetti more. Will that pay off for him in the long run? We'll see how he responds. That's kind of how it is with the no such thing as bad publicity. You got to respond in the right way. So I'm not mad about his appearance, what he said, his brashness. I'm not mad about it. I understand the game. He needs to do that. But it doesn't look good once you go out there and get steamrolled by Notre Dame, who I think showed last night that they are a completely different team than the one that lost to Northern Illinois.
Yeah, fair.
Very physical team, obviously. Good defensively. Signetti doesn't bother me only because Fleck doesn't bother me either, though, right? I like Fleck's production. The guy wins. That's what I'm saying, and that's to me that's exactly the same with Signetti. He's going to have a shtick. He's going to be. But it's not even a shtick. I think he's just legitimately a kind of a bag, right? Like he's maybe just I don't know if I want to hang out with the guy, right? Like
yeah,
I don't know. Whereas with PJ Fleck, it does seem a little more shticky and a little more I'm intentionally being like this in order to blah blah. Signetti, I think that's kind of how the guy is. I just think that's how he is. But his teams, listen, his teams play hard. For the most part, they were outgunned last night. They were not physical enough to deal with Notre Dame. They weren't. And Notre Dame had ample time to study them and study that offense and shut it down. There's a whole book on Indiana. There was no book on Indiana coming into this year, right? At all. But by now you got them pretty well scouted. And if you have equal or better talent, looks like you could beat them, right? But the fact that they were even there, There were Chris disagrees. He just completely vanished. He just left. My takes were too hot. He couldn't even deal. The fact that they were even there is incredible. There are exactly 0 human beings on earth who thought that Indiana would be in the playoffs coming into last year. Like, who thought that? Really? Nobody. Like, absolutely nobody. So the fact that they got there, especially here in Nebraska, where it's like, being pretty thankful that you're getting to the Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College, right? Like, so I don't know. People can talk. Signetti's going to talk, but they actually got it done, and they look like, as long as he's there, looks like they're going to be a tough out, right? It looks like you think they're going to be a non-bowl team next year.
Well, the question is
their sustainability.
Does it turn into a rebuild next year, or are you able to reload? And I think that's kind of part of the brashness of going on game day yesterday is you'd like to be a destination for guys in the portal because they're going to need to hit the portal. Go get yourself some recruits. Like, go be brash. Go make a name for yourself. Get some attention on Indiana. That's what yesterday the game day appearance was. I will say game day overall yesterday was electric. You have Signetti, Shane Gillis calling Nick Saban, Alabama Jones
instead of Indiana Jones.
One of the highlights of game day from all season happened last night. So that was great. But the question I want to ask is, does the performance last night combined with what Indiana did against Ohio State, does it change how you view that Nebraska-Indiana game? Is it too late for us to go back there and be like, man, what the hell happened?
Yeah, that game, that felt a lot like Colorado in year one, where you're hanging on by a thread, and at one point it was 13-7 against Indiana, right? And at one point it was 13-7 against Colorado. That first time out in Boulder, year one for Rule, and then the levee busted. So, I mean, Indiana was just playing great ball that day with their back shoulder throws, their run game. Nebraska had no answer defensively, and the offense
at all.
Clearly was a bleep show because it only scored 7. So, but I mean, it wasn't a quick kill, so to speak. I mean, Indiana had to go make some plays, Gertie, goddamn it! I know that your water bowl. She's flipped it over and using her nose to push it all across the floor.
Oh, yeah. Why is she doing that?
The German Shepherd, because it's empty. I've filled it 7 times this morning.
Oh, okay. Is she on medication? Is that why?
No, she's just an idiot.
She sounds thirsty too. You might maybe
you can't spare a little water with your 7 bottles of water you've probably already consumed this morning.
Yeah. She learns from watching you, you know. But
it's the old don't do heroin after school PSA. Where'd you get these? Learned it from watching you.
Exactly.
I'm gonna get some more water for the German. But
hey, can we recommend a bigger dog bowl too? Just a thought. Just a thought. Then you don't have to fill it up as often.
It's
one of the refilling ones
out in the yard.
Oh, it's out in the yard.
You don't like the big ones that have like the big reservoir on top, so it fills itself up over the course of the
she took that part out of it and it's somewhere else in the yard.
It is a German Shepherd. They need to be very busy. They need to stay busy.
Where's your ball?
Intelligent animals.
Where's your ball?
What were we talking about?
I don't know, but this podcast has steadily devolved to just like being a voyeur into Chris's living room. It's great. He's talking about, hey, where's your ball? Where's your ball?
Oh yeah, Indiana, Nebraska.
Defensive
performance that day.
Go on. I'd like to hear your hot takes on it.
I don't have that many takes. Just like, man, what was the Husker defense doing that day? Like,
really, what did happen? That was something that there was a fundamental. I wish I understood enough about like defense. Everybody talked about the counting situation. Like that's what Indiana really does. Like, and that's what the RPO is you count, and that dictates what you're going to do. But other teams do that too. Why was it so effective with them? Right? Why did it look like Tony White and the defense had never seen an RPO before? Like, coach, you would believe what they're doing. Like, yeah, that's been going on for a while.
Worried about that RPO. I mean, they spent all week on it, and they didn't. That's not what killed them. They just didn't stop the run that day.
They were so concerned about getting beat on the quick passes off of the RPO that they didn't have the right guys or the right count in the box in order to stop the run. Like the game plan was just so broken for that game defense.
Yeah.
Do you think that's where it turned, by the way? Another conspiracy theory to start it. I think that's where it turned with Rule and with White. Do you think that's where
I think UCLA,
maybe they were best friends all the way until the end? But
I think UCLA's inability to get off the field on third down.
Well, Mark asked
that was the
Mark asked where I think Indiana started it. I think UCLA may have been the breaking point in terms of maybe a fissure between Rule and Tony White.
I don't know if there was a schism per se, more so you can imagine.
That's where things turned with me and Tony White, and I'm sure you all too, right? I mean, that's where.
Well, you can imagine
Tony.
You can imagine a world where your head coach starts bitching at the defensive coordinator. Dude, what's going on? What's this game plan? Got to stop him. And if I'm Tony White, I'm like, bro, talk to me about your offensive coordinator. I don't want to hear anything about. I know 56 points is brutal, but 56 could have been 27.
And then Terrence Knighton's watching this whole discussion, and he's just like, I just got to move out of the house. It's time for me to leave.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana's a good squad. They just need to kind of shut their mouth and be better next time. And they may be, or they could be a one-hit wonder with what's Signetti's ability to reload or go get more portal guys from James Madison, I guess. Yeah. Brandon Vogel with us from CounterRead, counterread.com. Portal news, volleyball thoughts, and the playoff got kicked off. Vogues, how we doing? What do you know, man?
I don't know much, but I'm doing well. So That's
Good.
kind of the best way to make it, right?
Makes for a great podcast guest. Perfect. Please know some things. If that'd be great. Just a few.
All right, I'm gonna start. What do you know about reverse sweeps and Nebraska volleyball? I am, we watched the Iowa win against Nebraska in football, and despite seeing that movie, you're like, how the hell did that happen? I'm still like coming to grips with Nebraska Penn State, where you're 2 match points away, and then Penn State just keeps living. And I didn't think I'd see that from a John Cook team. Now, great. This isn't pile on John Cook. I mean, this team was awesome. I just didn't see them falling that way, in that manner, Vogues, the way it went down against Penn State.
Yeah, well, twice in a lifetime match, at least for me. Last time that happened in Nebraska in the tournament I was 3 years old, so hadn't seen it in over 4 decades. So I was as shocked as well. I've always kind of thought, whether it be the World Series or volleyball or even a boxing match, when you have an opponent kind of on the ropes and they survive that, once you get to that, well, in this case, 5th set, a game 7, whatever it may be, like whatever advantage you had is gone. And that's certainly what it looked like in that 5th set between Penn State and Nebraska. I know Husker fans have seen enough win probability charts for the rest of their life, but you don't see one often with volleyball. And I think at a point after Nebraska had kind of battled back in the 3rd set, I think, for those 2 match points, Penn State's was down to 0.03%, which, we've seen a lot of football get up to 96,
Wow.
97, 98, but 99.7, I think Volleyball Mag shared that on Twitter is where I saw that. So pretty shocking. Nebraska out-hit Penn State, I think 262 to 242. Second time this year they've out-hit Penn State and lost. The difference, I think, we're talking about slim margins here. Penn State was a little bit better in terms of its serve receive, which is unusual for a Nebraska team, and kind of made the difference. It was just it was really that big momentum swing there once Penn State fought off Nebraska's great opportunity to sweep that thing. At that point, things really turned.
Is it one of those rare situations too, for how good that team was, finishing as runner-up, frustrating end, obviously, and losing some really legitimate top-line players, that are Olympic material. Merritt Beeson, Becca Alec is outstanding. Lexi, of course, is all world. But isn't it kind of interesting that you can make the case that the team could be better next year, even though you're losing those folks, with the way they have recruited? The ones that are waiting in the wings and that, superb sophomore class that kind of formed the nucleus this year. Right? Like, this is not Nebraska's in rebuild mode. No, not at all.
No, and that's the value of the way that they recruit and how they've recruited for a long time. The program hasn't won a national title since 2017, and we've seen some really good teams and some really good players in that stretch post title. And it almost never feels like you're like, well, what are you going to do without this player? And it's not a discredit to any particular player. It's just a reflection of the overall quality that Nebraska has. The one that, and I think Nebraska has some really good players at this spot too, but Lexi Rodriguez, generational player. That's the one that, anyone can point to, and I certainly would point to when you look towards next year. But in some ways, with Nebraska and its consistency, it almost feels like every season kind of comes down to the sort of things we saw Thursday night. Like, you're right there, and it's just a little bit of kind of how the breaks go or don't go. You take it all the way down and make the margin as thin as you possibly can. But it's still hard to eliminate the margin between winning and losing totally, even though that's how the champions get remembered. The reality is like, there's some randomness inherent to everything out there.
But you wonder too how they're gonna. Of course, Lexi she's on her own planet, right? Like she kind of in her own category. But like it's not like Cho Boy is going to be some sort of liability, right? Like she's going to be incredible too. I don't know, Brandon. It's just, is it a mentality thing more than anything? And because you go back to when Nebraska last won, and you had Michaela Fecky, who was kind of had that assassin's mentality, just really killer instinct. You see some of that in Jackson. I think you see some of that in Cho Boy. Obviously, she's defensively, but just in terms of sheer competitiveness, and they get in the zone and they come at you hard in a game. Do you think maybe some of it is that, and that if you have like a Jackson, like a Cho Boy, now in an upperclassman sort of leadership position among the team, instead of just being on the team, that could help propel them?
Yeah, I think, and I've thought this with, we've ended up at this spot with Nebraska volleyball of coming up just a hair short often recently. And I've kind of felt that post 2017 and said it before, like the talent level is so high, but there's like another Terminator level that you saw with Michaela Fecky, where you get into these matches like this, and I think we see it particularly in volleyball, where it's just like, well, that's where you're going to go. Like it's great, and you want to be able to spread the ball around, and you don't want to be reliant on any one player. But when it comes down to like, okay, we need a point, having a player who has that not just ability but mentality to do that is something I think that separates teams when you get to this level. You in this case, you only have 4 seeds left. I thought Penn State had that. I think Harper Murray could get there. Mm-hmm. I thought she played pretty well on Thursday night. But to that point, this is one where I think the results kind of speak for themselves. Has Nebraska had quite that level of player in terms of just their ability to make things happen? Maybe it hasn't quite gotten there. It's at least compared to like the sterling example of somebody like Michaela Fecky.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Vogel's with us. counterread.com. Some thoughts on Husker volleyball. We'll get to some portal thoughts with Nebraska as they were able to get Marcos Davila last night, quarterback from Purdue, top 30 quarterback in that 2024 class, and little insurance for Nebraska. Our shout outs need to happen. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, got in early this morning. Marathon Alarm is here. Good to have you, dude.
That's a new one.
Yeah, either that or someone's strategically placing their business in the stream and not on the screen. We can do both for you. Mm-hmm. Walter in Philly says Siggs got stuffed in a locker last night. Agree. I think Saban wanted to do it. He's a little sick of hearing his former guy shoot his mouth off and then not deliver against a ranked squad. KG, good to have you. Mike is here. Mr. Erickson, Mike from Cali. Jake in, good to have you, Jake. Uncle Larry, Andrew. We'll have some more shout outs, and Michael is here as well. Mark and KG check in as well. So I want to ask this about volleyball before we get to football. And you mentioned Fecky and that Terminator kind of persona. That's what Nebraska seemed to be missing is having that killer, right? They have talent. They have waves of it. They are a fantastic unit. But Jaravicius last night was a difference maker. Mm-hmm. She had an edge. She still kept score about having to redshirt and didn't get to play in Round the World, the good one. With Memorial Stadium and Volleyball Day. And you also had the other gal, forgive me, that kind of matched wits with Nebraska's best of the best. So what's your read on the whole Jaravicius Nebraska dynamic? Because it was absolutely personal, and she willed that team to win.
Yeah, this isn't always the case, but it looked like she was playing to say, I have something to prove against this team in particular. And to her credit, I think she had a career high night in kills. She got it done, and that's the thing. Like, with Nebraska, Cook is always evolving, and like. I never really have a concern with Husker volleyball that there's like a stone that's left unturned. That they're talking about self-talk and a lot of the mental pieces of it. But I think at a certain level, like what we're talking about here with what we saw from Jaravicius, for example, is the sort of thing that's just you can't coach it into somebody. Like it's either there or it's not. Like you can build, with the right talent, you can build a technically skilled boxer. But not every boxer is also going to win like an all-out street fight. And I think that's kind of what you saw from Penn State in that match. Is it can do all the technical things at a high level, but at some point you throw that all to the side, and you're not in the ring anymore, and it's just about who's gonna come out on top.
Well, I like the boxing analogy, Brandon, because like it's a saying, I'm going to butcher it here, but like sometimes the best boxers are just defined by who is able to get up off the mat. And Penn State had that ability on Thursday night to get up off the mat. Whenever things went against Nebraska, you look at that third set going into the fourth set where you have control. I mean, you're up, I think it's 22-16 in that fourth set. You let it slip away. You're not able to get up off the mat. And that was kind of the difference in the match between, for me, whenever you have two teams so evenly matched going in. From a stats point of view on Thursday night, they were pretty evenly matched as well. Penn State just had that ability to get up off the mat whenever they needed to.
Yeah, they did, and they deserve a ton of credit for that. And obviously, with the situation with that program this season, they had playing for something pretty big in terms of their head coach as well. And it was a disappointing for Nebraska fans echo, at least in my mind, to me, of the Wisconsin match. Wisconsin jumped out right away in the first set in that regional final. Nebraska battled back. Wisconsin counterpunched, but Nebraska hung on. And this time, in a very similar scenario, in the third set, where Nebraska had match points and was playing to move to the final, couldn't quite withstand the counterpunch from Penn State. So Nittany Lions deserve a ton of credit for that.
Brandon Vogel's with us from Counter-Read, counterread.com. Thoughts on Nebraska's great volleyball season, but a tough finish against Penn State. Vogues, want to go to the transfer portal, and you have Trost, the tackle that Nebraska was looking hard at. You have World, also the tackle Nebraska was looking at. You're 0 for 2 there as Trost went to Missouri last night, and World ended up at Oregon. Nebraska's been unafraid to spend money and be a choice financially. But right now you're still trying to see if you can't get the Washington State kid at right tackle, Fa'amoa. So we'll see and keep you posted there. How about old Dana Holgerson, a kid that he was going after? So was A&M, so was Miami. Quarterback Marcos Davila. Really like this dude's arm talent, but more so I just like the fact that, I don't know, just call me crazy. I think Dana goes after a certain quarterback mentality. And
yeah,
I think this could be great. I mean, he's same class as Dylan, but I need competition in that room, and I'm glad Nebraska went to the portal to get it.
Yeah, competition's always important. Like Nebraska needed the depth, and in terms of him taking a redshirt year, you kind of replaced what you lost in the portal in terms of just how the room, not talking about individual players' ability, just how the room kind of shakes out. So, it looks like we don't know in terms of what Davila was as a college player much yet. Maybe some Purdue folks know, but he didn't play. You've got another option there to kind of push Dylan Raiola. I mean, credit to Dylan as a true freshman, but I always find it a little bit surprising when you make it through a whole season playing one quarterback effectively. I mean, I know Dylan had to go out for a little bit, but that's probably not going to be the case all the time. So you got to have depth. It's hard to maintain, particularly at quarterback, and Nebraska addressed that need in a pretty big way, I think.
It's almost perfect, by the way. Who here thought that you would get somebody who looks like a player that could start at a lot of programs? We don't know if he's that good. I'm just saying his recruiting rankings and all that, and being as young as he is, I thought for sure you'd have to get another Gramstad type that's just like, well, been around a while. I think I'm going to transition into coaching. I'll try this out. But here's a guy he's got his whole career ahead of him, and he's a pretty highly touted guy as well. He told I think it was Husker Online, pretty interesting insight into Purdue, which I know happened, but like we all know it happened, but to hear it come from the quarterback, I mean, he's just like, he basically was saying it was a weird situation where our coach, who's a defensive guy, fires Graham Harrell and then inserts himself into the room and starts calling plays offensively. He said, I was a mess. And like, we all heard that, but think about that. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Rule did that this year, like with Satterfield? Everybody's like, that's it. Nope. He's out of here, and I'm calling the plays. And you're just like, bro, that's not your.
Had that happened, how many more wins do you have?
Oh, jeez. Well, Chris is saying it wasn't a bad idea. Okay, that's good.
It's not a good idea everywhere.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Satterfield. Merry Christmas.
No, I'm just saying it's not a good idea everywhere. It might not be a bad idea in some places.
Didn't work out for Walters. Didn't work out. How about what this might do to Raiola's development, right? And when you talk about a certain kind of quarterback, that's kind of strange, that there's a prior relationship with Holgorsen and Davila. They're similar in age, Raiola and the new guy, similar in size. And I think if there's a criticism that I've heard pretty consistently about Raiola is that he just appears too casual. Take that for what it's worth, but he just appears too casual. Whereas a Holgorsen quarterback might be a little bit more deliberate, quick, alert, that kind of style. What do you think it can do for Raiola's development as soon as this year?
Yeah, I think it injects something new to what we've seen at Nebraska's quarterback to this point, in that, we'll see what kind of college quarterback Davila is, but given the connection to Holgorsen, given kind of, the knowns about him, like his offer list, his recruiting ranking, like if this was your guy for next year, like you'd feel okay about that based on all of those things, even though we don't have games to go on. But outside of Matt Rule and the coaches and players, like, did any of us spend any time last offseason talking about the quarterback battle? Like, we all had to acknowledge it, right?
Yeah.
But it was clear that unless something was majorly wrong, Dylan was the guy, and that never was in doubt throughout the season. So now you inject somebody who the new offensive coordinator knows well, should be pretty accomplished. Like, I think the competition piece of it has an opportunity to feel more real than it has to this point. And we'll see if that shakes out or not. But I think that's the upside for Nebraska. And to your point, Mark, like, getting a 4-star quarterback from a fellow Big Ten school is way better than I thought Nebraska was going to be able to do in the portal. Like, I was looking at, maybe a graduate transfer who's moving up either from G5 or even FCS, who's like, I want the chance to experience Big Ten football. and I'll be ready and I can help this team win. No, that's not what they've got. So it's a pretty big addition when you start to dig into it.
Brandon,
Well,
you look at the college football playoff. I mean, obviously you have the Texas situation where you have a guy in Arch Manning who I think is truly pushing Quinn Ewers, but elsewhere, is that just no longer a reality in college football, having a backup that pushes the starter? Because you don't see it very much on the college football playoff teams.
Yeah, other than Texas, which is a pretty unique situation in a lot of ways. Not just with like Arch Manning and everything around him, but you're also talking about like the program in terms of revenue that leads the country. It's unique. So trying to run through the quarterback, like Indiana transfer quarterback, Notre Dame transfer quarterback, guys that were brought in because they needed a starter. Penn State homegrown quarterback or guy that they recruited and have developed. Georgia, that though he's not going to play. So yeah, I mean, I think that scenario. I mean, maybe Georgia. We'll see what they're able to do with the backup. Georgia might be the exception, but Georgia's the exception in a lot of ways in college football, and it's a program that's just humming along. So they might be one of the few that has the quote unquote privilege of being able to have guys come in and sit because they want to be a part of what is still probably the most powerful program in the country. We'll see what it means in the playoff.
Brandon Vogel's with us, folks. What'd you think of old Dana's press conference when our friend Brian Christopherson asked him about the offensive line and if young guys could see some time? I mean, I want to go there because Nebraska's in the market for help on the offensive line. Nebraska's also 2 recruiting classes into this era. And I mean, I think we're all, aside from the Will Shields of the world, we're all in the belief that if you're at or ahead of schedule, your redshirt freshman year, maybe your sophomore year is when you get on the field. It takes that long to develop in most instances on the offensive line. So old Dana pulling the old grenade pin about, we need to go get some guys, I thought was hilarious. Not just how he said it, but the tone of how he came bluntly out about what's in the cupboard.
Yeah, bluntly is the right word, which is good. I think Nebraska fans, and I know I am, will come to count on Holgorsen for those moments. I'd call it a minor alarm bell because that's kind of the progression where Nebraska's at now, right? You mentioned with the recruiting classes, like you're losing some guys, some veteran players, and this should be where that first wave of Rule era O-linemen, guys we've heard good things about, we just haven't seen much of, are stepping into the fold. And then Holgorsen comes out and says, "Well, we need some veterans, or
you got to bring some guys in.
We got to bring some guys in." Tells you that, well, in his view at least, right now, maybe that first wave is still building, is not quite ready to crash onto the shores of Memorial Stadium. So you mentioned the 2 tackle prospects that Nebraska's now missed on, or guys that chose to go elsewhere. Like we talk about this all the time, like it's tough in the portal with O linemen, like especially at tackle. Good luck to you. Like you don't want to be a team that has a real need at tackle and needs to address it in the portal, because I think it's probably one of the 2 or 3 toughest positions to end up landing. And Nebraska will take its swings and see, but they're probably going to be a little bit diamond in the rough territory in terms of O-line.
I mean, this is just me, but as long as Ben Hart's been here, and this is year 6, shouldn't you have someone behind him ready to go?
I mean, not only should you have somebody behind him, like the guy who was set to be behind him probably should have left like 2 seasons ago. He's like, this guy's
should have
just
graduated already. Yeah. His grandkids are in college, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean, when you boil it down, the fact that Benhart played 50 or started 50 career games, like how are you coming up a little bit short at that spot, presumably, because you've had a lot of time to prepare somebody, and here we are, and guys leave. It's a different area in college football too, so chalk some of that up to
2 of your tackles
this.
have also been hurt. I mean, Corcoran and Teddy, so there's that. So
we'll see. I mean, like I said, I think O-line certainly moved to near the top of the list based on what we heard. I thought the addition of Isaiah Hunter from Cal, that in my mind that's the
huge
biggest one. It's the biggest one Nebraska's got. Like I like him a lot based on what I've been able to see since he joined the fold.
Based on what you saw from the wide receiver room, Brandon, I like what you said about Hunter there. Got me thinking, how important would another guy? I mean, Dane Key's on campus now. We saw him post that on his Instagram story. Does Nebraska need a guy like Dane Key in the portal? Like, as you go power ranking Nebraska's positions of need, where is wide receiver following the addition of Hunter?
I don't know that I would put it towards the top of Nebraska's needs, but it's just so easy to see the impact of wide receivers. Like if you could take a good player there, I think you always take them because their ability to impact games. I've been looking at just kind of transfers and expected points added on the offensive side, and like quarterbacks they average around like 0.2. Receivers, much smaller sample size, which is part of this, but they're averaging up around 0.9 in terms of like what they're able to add in a short space. So if you can get a guy who's going to be an above average EPA, like it's a lot of bang for your buck is, I think, the big thing when it comes to wide receivers.
When you look at Boston College coming up, in which I don't know if I've ever been less prepared for a bowl game in terms of just who Nebraska is matching up against than this year.
What it's about or what it's like.
I mean, well, I've forgotten what it's like. And then it's also just with the amount of news away from that matchup, just keeping up with all that. It's just, it's a lot. It's a big investment of time to also learn about Boston College. But let's just look at what Nebraska is going to trot out onto the field with. And let's look at it offensively with the losses that they've had due to attrition, transfer portal, all that. So no Dowdell, no Nair, tight end in Borkacher, no Mazuka. What do you make of maybe some names that have not been able to play much? Which guys maybe will we see more of as a result of those departures?
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of like Nebraska's offense, specifically against this Boston College defense, which is pretty tough. It's a good rush defense from Boston College. That's part of it, and Nebraska's dealing without, going into this without Dowdell, down a couple of O linemen. So I would expect we'll see plenty of Emmett Johnson. I'm intrigued by Quentin Ives. For as much as Matt Rule has talked about him, I feel like this might be an opportunity to finally see something to go on with him. But I wonder, and we'll see what the weather's like on December 28th in New York City. But Boston College, at least last I knew, was dealing with a couple injuries and maybe, an opt-out or two in the secondary. Like, I think there's room here for Nebraska to be able to throw the football, which is why the weather piece potentially potentially comes into it. We'll see what kind of game it is, and if Nebraska chooses to attack it that way. But be without Nayor, I would expect maybe a little bit more Carter Nelson if Nebraska's throwing the ball, at least at the level that it has in the past. Quinn Clark's a guy we heard a lot about in terms of scout team. That kind of goes back to the transfer wide receiver portal thing. Like, you might only get 5 or 6 targets, if that, but a guy can come in and have a really big impact at that spot. So it wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska got 1 or 2 of those.
Brandon, as we wind it down here, we got Gary Sharp waiting in the green room. We got to get to him. I do want to get your thought. College football playoff today. If you can pick one, which game are you locked in on a Saturday afternoon?
Ohio. Well, it'll be Saturday night because it's Ohio State, Tennessee. That's you got a ton of storylines there. We'll see the Vols, an SEC team, heading to Big Ten country for a night game. When I look at today's slate, and I was pretty excited for last night's game, but today's slate, that's the headliner for me. So I'll be biding my time until then.
Vogue's Counter Read, tell folks how to sign up.
Yep, head to counterread.com. That'll point you in the right directions. Twice weekly newsletter from myself and Aaron Sorensen. Sunday, I'm trying to make sense of teams that are inarguably great, but don't quite get over the finish line in terms of Nebraska volleyball. So putting together my thoughts on that. And then later in the week, we'll dig into for Mark, who hasn't had time to read up on Boston College yet.
Thank you.
We'll have that.
We need a primer. My God. Ask anybody, though. Just ask the average person on the street. Like, name me 2 Boston College players. They'll be like, it's too much to keep up with.
Costello transferred. He didn't specify. And Izaraku has 7,000 sacks this year. So there's 2.
Well, you're not an average person on the street. You're an above average person on the boulevard.
Well, we'll see. Vogues, appreciate you. Merry Christmas, bud. Appreciate it. Thanks
guys. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Brandon.
Sea Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. Sharpie, how we doing? You're on mute.
Nope.
You're on mute.
Nope.
It's a false start.
Did you pay your bill? Your electric bill?
Still got him muted.
Yeah.
He is swearing at us.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Damn button.
Yeah, the mute button when you first plug in the Yeti. Yeah.
Yeah, when you touch the thing right there. You touch it, Mark, and then it doesn't go, and then you keep touching it, and then it gets red.
What are we talking about?
Practice.
Right there.
Talking about practice.
Hopefully a microphone.
Talking about practice.
What kind of practice?
Practice is when you want to pull a Kurt Signetti, you invite all the in-laws over and you tell them that you're going to kick their ass in Monopoly. And you know what? For 3 hours, every property you land on, you never buy one of them.
How about that? From game day to game time, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's good.
No,
but it just, Indiana won 11 games. But they took advantage of a good conference schedule for them. But man, you can't run it and then show up and, be down 27-3 essentially.
The comment, yeah.
Sharpie doesn't just Brennan mute button. He just beats the bleep out of the mute button.
Yep.
Hey, Mark, Grayson James is BC's quarterback, and they have a great defensive end who, as of right now, a week out, who leads the country in sacks, is still going to play in the game.
Okay, keep going, please. I'm taking mental notes, and this is being recorded too, so this will help other folks as well. What else? More Boston College. More Boston College.
Matt Ryan is not playing. Steve Adazio is not on the sidelines.
Played about
Ed
4
Foley
games this year, right?
Do we know about Ed Foley's brother, Glenn Foley? Huh? Remember that?
Remember him and Pete Mitchell.
College? Yeah. Mid-90s Boston College quarterback.
Mark, you weren't with us earlier in the week. Elijah, you need to repeat. Elijah has the best way to sum up how you approach a bowl game, wins or if you win or you lose.
Yeah,
please.
It's very simple. Do you care about the bowl game? Like does it matter if you win? Yes. If you lose, no. That's modern bowl practice. Like Florida yesterday, that was a big bowl win for Florida yesterday. Very important. They got the win, momentum going into the offseason. Tulane, well, who cares? Like, it's a bowl game. Bowl games don't matter anymore.
I don't know. I think we'll skewer them for a couple of weeks if they lose. Don't you think?
Depends on how they lose.
I think they have more. I think they have more good vibe to gain by winning than negative vibe to lose. Because, so hello to the missus. Because look at they're going to be. I mean, this is going to be a challenge for Nebraska. Just to you got new coaches, you got new players that haven't played that have been moved. They've done a couple of things in the defensive backfield because they're down some guys. They've moved some guys around, so they're playing. At least in the bowl prep, they're playing different positions. I mean, we're all fascinated. We're going to watch a week from today. We're going to do this show, and we're going to be excited. We're going to watch the game because that'll be the last time you get to watch Nebraska for 2024. But it is a weird dynamic of, how you generate excitement for the bowl. I mean, have you been out and bought your bowl shirt now? Gone to Husker Hounds, where they are, by the way, discounted already.
Oh, wow. Is there like a phrase for this one? Some kind of play on words, an alliteration, a pun, nothing?
I don't
Big
think
Apple,
so.
Boston College, Nebraska. It's just no.
No. I mean, what is the bigger storyline about Nebraska going to the Pinstripe Bowl is the fact that they are staying in the same hotel where the CEO of United Healthcare got shot outside of.
That's great.
Oh no,
that's fantastic.
Oh,
yeah.
What's the over under on the room temp?
It's I'm in my house, so it's like 70.
Okay.
It's not bad. But see, I the shades and dressed warmly. I do all of that. But thank you for everybody's concern.
Back to the Pinstripe Bowl here, though. Like, that doesn't matter. I mentioned the Florida Tulane game yesterday. Like, if Nebraska pulls a Tulane and lets Marco Rubio's son score a touchdown, I think it's rough. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
Marco Rubio's son scored a touchdown for Florida. That's how bad it got for Tulane.
Wow.
Team went crazy. And that's, what, it's unfortunate because Tulane was having a really good year.
Yeah.
And then the season ends and they kind of get decimated and they play in a bowl game and you're like, man, I guess Tulane wasn't very good. Well, yeah, you know what? In September and October and for part of November, they were a pretty good team. I don't know. We could make a list of who has the most to gain from this bowl game, whether it be, Ty Robinson with his NFL stock. He could have a good day and people go, you know what? Instead of maybe a fourth rounder, he's a third rounder or whatever they look at him. And then we all look at the young guys, but look at coaches. Hogerson spoke on the Zoom the other day. Does he benefit the most from having these extra practices? Because he's now seen guys in situations where instead of getting ready for a game on game week, he's now got about 2 weeks of evaluation of just seeing guys play football.
He is going to use this time not only to figure out what he's got coming back, but also what he needs to go get. And that's going to be super important and made it clear with the offensive line. I like the fact that a guy in Marcos Davila who wanted to go play for him at Houston ended up going into the portal and locking in with Nebraska last night. So that's good. So, no, this will be super advantageous for Nebraska's further steps offensively. We're just all kind of wondering about the defense, who's available, what young guys can go get ready and perform. And that whole Butler Snow dynamic, because it's going to be the first of what next season will be, how they want to go after it.
Yeah. Have you guys even started to try to put together a defensive depth chart for this game?
I have not.
Jeez.
That is
That's what I'm
project.
talking about. We just got into
10:40
offense with
next
Brandon
Saturday on the show.
Yeah, that's going to be the theme next Saturday is can we put together a defensive depth chart?
We'll have a defensive name draft, and we'll go around leading right up till kickoff.
I mean, you think about it. I think Nebraska is very fortunate that they'll have a guy like John Bullock, Nash, and Ty that are playing in this game. At least you have a quarterback of the defense, but that second level got pretty decimated in the last couple of weeks. I mean, there's going to be some guys that are going to play extended snaps that, you worry about the communication a little bit. I also worry about, what defense is Nebraska going to run? I mean, are they going to run a defense that, the guys that they have available and their skill level and their experience level can fit into? I mean, it's kind of, if you're John Butler, you're like, yeah, I like familiarity, but man, we'd also like to win the football game. And this is what we have to do. But then there's the other part. If you want to stick with defense, Ty and Nash said, hey, we want to play every snap. And all of us are like, well, I'd like to see Keona Davis and Riley Van Poppel play in this game. Is their snap count the highest that it's been, this season?
You treat it like an opportunity to go win. I mean, you're letting them play. They have chosen to do that, but it's got to be within the framework of what's the best for the defense. And if these guys have been on the field for 8 straight snaps and a drive they can't get off the field, you got to rotate your fresh dudes in.
Yeah.
The wife is going to stomp back to the bedroom after saying, who cares about the defensive depth?
By the way, I asked AI for 10 promotional slogans for the Pinstripe Bowl of Nebraska versus Boston College and asked to make them funny. It can't even do it, man. AI is just like, man, I got nothing.
AI doesn't even care. AI is like, who cares?
I seriously said, make them kind of funny. And one of them was Cornhuskers versus Eagles. I'm like, man, you're not even trying at this
Who
point.
would win that battle out in the middle of a field in Mullen?
Pinstripes and pigskin.
Well, we're referring to Cornhusker being like the occupation, a guy who husks corn against an eagle.
And is attacked by an eagle out in the middle of a field in Mullen, Nebraska. Who wins?
Well, have you seen like the Cornhusker device that the people who were Cornhuskers wore? It was essentially this glove that has like a hook on it.
No.
So what you do is you just rub your hand along the corn and it hooks the husk and it pulls it down. So I wonder if that could be used advantageously in a potential Eagle versus Cornhusker showdown. Like it's a hooked glove.
It's a horror movie.
It mimics a claw, right?
Yeah.
Or talon. Yeah. Another one was Huskers in the Bronx. I'm just, I asked it to be funny. It's just like there's nothing to play off of here with Boston College and Nebraska.
But he does, and this is, you can tell how special a trip it is for Rule. That they might have a walkthrough in Central Park, which is pretty cool. I mean, he's about the experience. And then out of his pocket, for anybody that was on last year's team that wants to come to New York City, he's going to pay for it. Anybody that's looked at flights out of Omaha, it's expensive. I mean, this is an expensive trip. It's New York City, period. And then you add on Christmas. I know he's trying to make it an experience for the players, but I wonder if there'll be any like Yankee Stadium pinstripe connection where, Ty Robinson has a sack and he pulls an Aaron Judge walk-off move or
you do your Babe Ruth, call your shot.
Yes. Right? Yes. Something like that. Or some Husker fan that's sitting in the right field bleachers all of a sudden does the roll call. Dylan Raiola. Okay.
Someone in the stands tries to.
Okay.
Someone in the stands tries to catch
the old Deo chant.
Matt Johnson. And then Emmett, he looks up from his stance and he's like, and they're like, yeah. And then you're on to the next one.
Does either
team Thomas Fedoni?
Does either team have a Reggie?
I don't know. You know what? I mean, it's kind of I don't know. It's a bowl game. It's so different compared to 8 years ago when Nebraska was playing, because we talked a lot about the Music City Bowl. We like the matchup. We're like, Tennessee. Hey, it could be a good matchup. It's Nashville. And there was no portal, and we just worried about the guys that were playing. Now we have all of us together. We have talked more about the Pinstripe Bowl in the last 10 minutes than I think we have in 3 weeks since it was announced. And that's kind of where college football is, unless you're playing last night, you're playing today, or you're playing on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day in the playoff. But I will say this, bowl games have been fun. Like, teams are having fun with the bowl game, whether both teams are wearing their home jerseys, they're running trick plays, the UNLV fake punt the other night. So at least they've been entertaining and they haven't just gotten, pushed aside. But here's what I don't like. So let's say we get to the ABC broadcast a week from today at 11 a.m. We want them to talk about Nebraska, BC. How much are they going to talk about the playoff? Because the bowl games yesterday, they talked about the playoff almost as much as they were talking about the game that was going on.
It'll be front and center. Got to promote, especially if the bowl game's going wayward. So at least this is a good slot. I mean, I know it's not an exciting bowl game with venue and opponent, and buzz is minimal because it's been portal focused, right? But this will be all right. You'll get a showcase and get the duct tape out, man. Figure it out and go get win 7.
It's just, I think it just comes down to, and it's not criticism against Boston College, but it's just one of those one of those Power 4 teams that there is absolutely no connection with whatsoever. you know, there's zero connection, and they're probably one of the least followed Power 4 football teams. I mean, they're right there with like Wake, you know, like it's interesting. You don't complain the fact that Nebraska's there, but it just kind of lacks the intrigue that you would see in most bowl games.
And it would be completely different if Nebraska had beaten Iowa, because that would have been 2 games that you won. You're going into a bowl game. It's not like you kind of backed into a bowl game. Now you're more focused on the portal. You've lost some guys that you're emotionally attached to, but then you shift and you go, man, I hope Dane Key likes that the stadium is lit up in red, which is kind of interesting that you're seeing the portal guys that come for their visits. They're all posting the same picture. Like they think it's cool that the Husker Vision is in all red and all the ribbon boards are in red. And I don't live in Lincoln, of course, but Elijah and Schmidt, you're maybe closer to the stadium where you drive by at night. I've been told that it's on all the time.
All the time.
Like there's just a red glow coming out of the stadium. That's pretty cool.
We're at like 2 weeks of the red glow, I think, now.
Yeah. Listen, are we going to look back? It's funny. I was explaining the playoffs yesterday. I was explaining that to my fiance, who doesn't follow and hasn't followed college football a lot, right? More of a
so she still thinks Nebraska is a dynasty?
No, she didn't even know anything about it, any of that.
Right?
So I was trying to explain. I'm like, well, it's the playoffs tonight, and trying to explain, like, oh, you know, and then trying to explain bowls, right? It's just imagine having very little connection with college football and trying to explain why last night was significant, because it's the first time it's part of the 12-team playoff.
Not a play on words.
And then it's like
significant.
Nice.
That's pretty good. There's our title. God. But trying to explain the existence of the bowls, trying to explain the place they play in college football and how that's actually kind of going down because of the 12-team play, right? It's just and then the transfer portal and all those things. Will we look back on 24 as the most chaotic year in college football history? And does it level out a little bit next year? Or is this the new normal with kind of just the complete open free agency and, you know, just sheer chaos when you look at it historically with college football? Is this as crazy as it's going to get? Do we think it'll level out a little bit?
I would hope so. Here's what my hope is. I think we are going to get to a cooling off period with the NIL, because, you know, that's going to be adjusted with revenue sharing and employees and contracts that is eventually coming. But don't you think, and this is an interesting dynamic for a Nebraska fan. You know, Greg Byrne made a comment earlier in the week about Alabama, and he basically was begging for some money. But if you think about it, even with all the success Alabama football has had, they're in a relatively small and poor state. So they don't have a lot of rich alumni. You look at Nebraska, which, you know, the state is now, I think, has crept over 2 million people, but we don't have like a ton of rich alumni. And I think when a Nebraska fan that understands NIL and understands the importance, wants to get involved, they probably also want to know what their return on investment is. And I think we have a lot of ego right now of people that have money, that have a passion for their athletic program around the country. They're spending willy-nilly. But there's got to become a point where they go, am I getting my return on investment? Because in the world where they've made that money to spend on NIL, they do the same thing. So I think there's a lot of ego right now that it's going to stop a little bit and go, what am I getting back? I paid $450,000 for a defensive tackle, and he didn't give me crap this year. Lose my number. But the thing, watch this, guys. It's all about, if Nebraska can win, we keep saying this, and we thought this was going to be the start of it, you can turn on the faucet, I fully believe. Because people, if Nebraska shows that they can win and they start stacking productive seasons, the money will come. But how about this discussion? So there's this push for the NIL 1890. And, you know, I think there's probably a mixed bag here in the last 2 weeks of players that just simply went to a program that's better than Nebraska, or Nebraska stepped up to the plate, but then they got beat out by just a little bit. And that other school also has success, or they're the number 1 seed in the country in the playoff. As a fan, what are you donating to? The NIL to reward, retain, and acquire players, or your fan experience, because right after the first of the year, here comes the big, huge announcement about the stadium project, and that affects you if you go to games and your comfort in sitting in a stadium. What are you going to donate to?
You know, you better be able to. Here's my question. When we talk about the pool of candidates to go make a phone call and say, can you scratch me a check? What do they care about? Do they care about going to the football game and being comfortable? I mean, they're probably in a skybox, so it doesn't matter to them. Or do they care about retaining and rewarding and, recruiting like you were talking about? I think they're gonna lean more towards go get the players, and then once things get fixed on the field, we can talk about getting fixed in the stands. I mean, I think that would be the priority. And how many sharks are in the pool? How big's the pool of big time donors? I mean, that's the other question. You got 1 billion J.R. Ewings at A&M, at SMU.
At SMU, billionaire boosters.
Big time, right? I mean, they did a ESPN 30 for 30 on these guys. They didn't care about pissing away $500,000. They just wanted to beat Rice, for God's sake, And then there's Oregon with Uncle Phil, and that is a bottomless well, and they're killing it on the field. So once you get better on the field, you're going to be better in the portal, theoretically, with, all right, even if you're outbidding at Oregon for an offensive tackle, which I think Nebraska did.
I know Nebraska stepped up.
Yes.
I think in this case, you have to go, he's going to Oregon. Yeah. I mean, Oregon, Nebraska. What are we talking about here? We're not talking about money. We're talking about success of a program. But Nebraska was aggressive.
Yeah. Do you think it leans in amenities for the Kraynaks of the world that you've been a season ticket holder for years, or do you think it goes to I think it goes to the players or potential players. That's where your money's going to go.
And the season ticket renewal emails came out this week.
Yes, they
did. Till it hurts. Kraynak.
Yeah, and they've simplified the giving levels, which I appreciate. That's good. It's been pretty ridiculous and confusing. I still don't even know where you find your priority points. They don't display it. They don't. You can look all over the place. It's hard to figure out. But it feels like Nebraska could do more with connecting the fans directly to the giving. And I'm talking about the common fan, the general fan. You had the branding like 1890 right in the middle of it. I think you lose people right there. NIL, I think a casual fan might not even know what that is, right? It's just, there's some barriers, I think, in between. But what Nebraska has going for it is the level of like emotional investment from their fan base.
Definitely.
Nebraska's got more of that than anyone. Couldn't you see a thing where it's like Isaiah World's in town, Huskers account tweets out something like, "Hey, Husker fans, we have an All-American tackle here. We need that Cornhusker fan signing bonus boost," and that's probably illegal or something. But
roll call.
Well, they tried. They did it with David Sanders. No, not the financial aspect, but they said, "Hey, show up and show out and let him know." And
that didn't quite pan out.
I know what you're saying. Like, would it
without something digital where it's really easy and you can just give $5-10?
Would it affect you guys if? Okay, so Dane Key, who everybody has projected to go to Georgia, and he may end up at Georgia. He's the Kentucky wide receiver, but his former position coach is now at Nebraska. He's on campus, so there's got to be something if he decided to come to Lincoln that he's looking for.
Well, so especially after his Georgia visit.
Exactly.
He likes his
What happens if he does say yes to Nebraska? And I don't count out Nebraska in this. And it comes out that, hey, because of what you guys did, we were able to secure Dane Key.
Exactly.
In Nebraska, how would that go over? We have a different mindset, and it's not, and not everybody is fully grasped NIL and paying players, because it's not, hey, let's get him an endorsement with Runza or wherever. It's we're paying to play. 98% of this stuff is pay to play. What if that was, hey, Matt Rule in New York City next week says, hey, first I just want to say thanks to all the Nebraska fans. Because of your generosity and how you stepped up, we were able to secure a wide receiver. How do you think that would go over? Would people go, ooh, that makes me uncomfortable, that's the dirty part? Or would they go, you know what, coach, you need me again, I'm right there?
Well, he needs to keep speaking it into existence, because he's the first guy to say it's going to cost you $2 million for a quarterback.
And
keep talking about it, and you're going to get used to it.
That was an interesting. He kind of went through it yesterday, talking about how Nebraska's roster is vulnerable. When you're 6-6 and you have some high profile guys, Dylan's going to get a knock on the door. Barney's going to get a knock on the door. Dowdell is going to get a knock on the door. I mean, they're vulnerable right now.
Yeah. I know. Agents.
You're not winning
are a problem. Yep. But imagine driving in on the interstate and there's Dane Key on a digital billboard with a ticker of how much money is being donated as he's pulling up. I'm serious, right? Like
telethon,
like that. Yeah, to get creative like that. Like, welcome, Dane. Here's Husker fans want you, and you see the number growing. Like, I don't know.
And you donate. Let's say you donate, Mark, all of that good hard-earned money you own, and he doesn't come to Nebraska, but you don't get that money back.
Well, then you tweet out, "Hey, fans, we missed it this time, but hey, we're building this pot.
Thanks for the bag.
Bring in somebody else. Gonna bring in somebody else. It's gonna go to somebody." I mean, I just think you got to get a lot more creative than you are right now to take advantage of. I think most fans would give $5 or $10 if it was easy. I don't think it's easy right now.
Do you think we need more transparency? On okay, we all know the guys with 1890, and we kind of know the process, but everything that gets posted, and those don't have to be public, like what the fundraising is. Nebraska is always like towards the bottom, which I don't believe to be entirely true. No. So do we need more transparency to say, hey, this is what essentially the Pede family has in the pot of 1890 is, $23 million or $16 million. Mm-hmm. Because they will tell you that the number that gets posted a lot, which is like, I think 7.9 and ends up being like near the bottom of the Big Ten, is inaccurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you don't have to publicly reveal that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just such a chaotic year. You'd have to imagine there is going to be some sort of salary cap, collective bargain, something. Yep. I just don't know what the entity is that's going to pull it all together.
Yep.
Where do you turn? Yeah. You don't have a college football czar. The NCAA is a joke. Congress is another joke.
Hell, you might have unlimited eligibility now.
I know. Yeah. Kraynak, that dream still exists, brother. Run out on the field.
I mean, is Damian Jackson going to come back and play?
Jeez.
Wasn't he 27, 28 when he left Nebraska?
Yeah.
Maybe we can have to go play 2 more seasons at Buffalo, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Maybe Damian Jackson could threaten to kill people if they don't sign. I mean, you might believe it.
Yeah,
Mark,
he's got a roll with 1890.
like, hey, kid, if you don't sign, just watch your back. Right? You're just kind of like.
But here, right, like we're gonna agree.
Like here's the stuff about the portal. So Marshall, the defensive back from Idaho, was on campus, and I know Dan Jackson really well, his defensive coordinator, and he speaks glowingly about him, and he really wants him to get the opportunity to move up. His head coach at Idaho left. Jason Eck went to New Mexico. Nebraska really likes Marshall. He had a really good visit. They presented him everything, and it's speed dating and portaling. It's not build the relationship over time. Then he shows up at Miami, and you're like, oh, I know how this recruiting works, but I thought you were on our campus and you then left. It's the riding of the wave. Like, we're halfway through the portal season because even though it closes on the 28th, reopens for some of the late bowls in the playoffs, Nebraska can take visits all the way up until the 21st of January when school starts. So midway through the portal, for the good, the bad, the ugly, and the still unknown, how would you guys assess how Nebraska's done in the portal?
I think they've done a hell of a job of getting guys here. Now,
yeah.
Can you get them to sign once they get here and not move on? And maybe it's up front with the kids visiting from the portal that they are going to take all their visits, right? Maybe it's a situation where Marshall is going to be coming back to Lincoln, but he still wants his free trip to South Beach in December. You got to know that about the kid, or at least get a feel about it, because when you look at Nebraska, I mean, they wasted no time with Hunter. I mean, they got Hunter here, the kid out of Cal, and that guy looks big time.
Looks like a grown man, which is good.
And I don't know. Help me out here with Marcos Davila. Did he take visits after his trip to Lincoln?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he flew. I think he flew into Epley, thought he was in Lincoln, ended up in Lincoln, fell in love with it, and then went back home, discussed, and then committed.
Okay.
You
So
thought he was in Lincoln?
the moral of the story is don't let people leave without signing.
Yes, so he flew into Epley. They picked him up. He drove by, as you always do when you're driving from Epley towards the interstate. You drive by the College World Series Stadium.
Yeah.
Took a picture. That was not Lincoln.
And he said,
Maybe he's just a baseball.
I missed that part. So he just mentioned
Your market is beautiful.
My God, look at there. There's PBA over there. Why does it have a Creighton sign on it?
Yeah.
That's where the Huskers play.
I'm glad you brought up the ballpark downtown, by the way. Can we switch real quick since you're a baseball guy? You got connections in baseball. The Omaha Devil Rays, is that happening? Omaha
No.
Devil Rays 2026.
No.
Why not? Come on.
There's a lot of logistics.
Yeah, just in terms of moving the entire support staff and all those things, right? And
TV, territorial rights, all of
the
that
Royals
stuff.
would feel like you're encroached on.
Past history in one game at that ballpark between Major League Baseball and Mecca.
Just what it turned out to be a disaster.
The Tigers and the it wasn't a disaster. The Tigers and the Royals didn't give it glowing recommendations. So not only COVID involved, but there's no interest to bring a Major League Baseball regular season game back to the College World Series.
Back to portal we go then.
Damn it.
You talk about how do you evaluate Nebraska so far in the portal? Don't you have to evaluate based on how many likely starters you've brought in? That's got to be the way you evaluate the portal moving forward, because it's free agency, and you don't in the NFL
2, 3.
You don't
right
evaluate
now, 3 starters.
The NFL's free agency by like, oh, look at all these quality depth pieces they got that could be good in a couple of years.
So that's a great point, Elijah. Okay, so
you're going. You got a long snapper, a punter, and a wide receiver, maybe a rotational defensive end. That's what we're looking at in the portal right now.
I think you're spot on.
And a quarterback.
Well, that's a depth
starter.
That's what we're talking about. Is you evaluate based on the starters that are brought in, the difference makers that are brought in.
Yeah, I guess starters wise, it's all you got is a starting long snapper, starting
punter,
and starting receiver so far.
And then we'll see Winery through spring, but I would say 3.5.
Yeah.
Is this Nebraska though? This is just the tier Nebraska is in right now. Like, right? If everybody's portal shopping, including the teams that have been in the upper echelon and that are playoff contenders, they're in the portal just as much. Is that just the tier Nebraska's in based on its recent success? Because financially, it appears that they're competing at least. So I mean, what do you chalk it up to? I guess it would be prestige, right?
So what do guys in the portal want to do? They want to go to the NFL, right? They want to get the bag. They want to get one last shot at glory.
Mm-hmm.
Probably play with a position coach that could help them get to the league. Trey Palmer is like, I'll follow Mickey anywhere.
Yep.
He gets to the league. Trey's still in the league with the Bucks. I don't know. They all have different. I don't think, like the portal guys that are looking aren't all created equal unless they have a past history with someone, or they were, hey man, Emmett Johnson really came back, Dante. Hey, Dante, let me get back to you. Who's your agent? Okay. Let's talk to your agent. Boom. You're at Kentucky.
By the way, forgot about Winery, right? He's probably a starter.
So we put him as the half guy because he could be either a starter or a rotational guy, but he'll play.
Yeah.
But then you celebrate the wins. Like, where does Emmett and Keona returning rank? Because that would be
huge.
I don't know. Well, let's put Keona in he might start. And then you got Emmett who I think today will start.
Yeah.
No, it's important to retain what you like. You got to do it.
And you might. Here's another element, guys. Is remember the North Dakota State, South Dakota are playing today. Mm-hmm. There could be guys on that roster.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing FCS group of 5 when they make a jump up. 100%. If they're good football players, they can be a good football player anywhere. that there may be some guys off those 3 local FCS teams that are in the Final Four that could be in the portal that Nebraska has a previous connection to. Maybe a former Nebraskan that went up to Fargo, Brookings, or Vermilion that now would like to come home. Something along those lines.
Nebraska's had some pretty good success with the 1AA guys coming up, right? Or with the FCS guys coming up.
You know who a prime example of that is? Omar Brown.
Yeah, Omar Brown, Toure.
Most recent, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've had
Brian Bussini.
Yeah.
True. Montana. Yeah.
You've had fairly good success there. And Rule talked about those guys as value picks, essentially.
But here's the thing, though, Mark, and that's a great point, is the let's just say, since Rule has been here in the world of the portaling that we have and how crazy it is, has Nebraska hit on their top target on the field? Maybe they've gotten their top target to come to Nebraska, but has the top target in the last 2 years hit on the field?
In terms of portal.
And you get them out of the portal, that's your number one target. So Hunter and Key, I think, are at the top of Nebraska's list.
Right.
I think Winery had the previous connection, so I'm going to put him aside. So they'll need those guys just like last year. I think Banks and Nair were the 2 key targets. Mm-hmm. They probably didn't have the kind of year that you expected consistently across the board. And then the previous year was Sims, and then you could throw in Mazuka. I think they were really excited about Mazuka. And
Dowdell too.
They didn't. Yeah. And then, and Dante had 12 touchdowns, whether you like how he played or not. He still had 12 scores. But I'm saying, if your key target doesn't they need to be one of the best players on the field?
Well, let's just talk generally speaking here, not just top targets. Generally speaking, how many portal hits in general has Nebraska had?
Batting average isn't good.
Sierra Wright.
Yeah, and he was a late one.
Yeah, Sierra Wright's probably the only portal addition you give an A to since Matt Rule showed up. MJ Sherman gets a B-.
Fair.
I wouldn't call it a miss, but he was just a fine rotational piece for you.
Elijah, do you think that's an internal thing? Because Rule likes the 2-year guys that come out of the portal. That's why Hunter is so appealing, because the wide receiver from Cal, who I like big-bodied wide receivers, and I cannot lie, when you're 6'2" and you can fly. But do you think, Elijah, that's a strategy that Rule likes 2-year guys because they kind of pop in year 2?
Well, he talked about it legitimately. I'm trying to think which press conference this was, whether this was after last season or before last season. I'm trying to remember when he said it, but he said, I'm not going to the portal to find 1-year stopgap guys, which is interesting because that is kind of a reality of the portal, is guys are going in there to get paid to go play 1 season of college football and get themselves into the NFL or whatever it may be. That's what guys do. But he's like, I'm not gonna punish the guys who have been here and doing it the right way by going in and finding a transfer portal guy that comes in and plays for 1 year as a stopgap. He's like, if we need to do it, we will, but that's not what we want to do in the portal. I think that's an interesting, likely stylistic change we're going to have to see from Rule. That's what a reality of the portal is you need to go find 1-year stopgap guys to go give you 1 good year of football, get their bag and get out.
What if this staff
keep rolling?
What if this, we talked about this in the midweek. What if this staff, and this is neither good or bad, it's just the reality. What if this staff is better at high school recruiting than they are portal recruiting?
Well, the previous staff, I think that's 100% accurate. The new crop, don't really know yet because a lot of them aren't even here.
You're talking about the Rule 2.0.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah,
right.
I'm fine with that if they're better at high school recruiting, as long as they can keep them here. I mean, what you don't want is, can you be right with a kid you think can play earlier than normal, but by the time you get them up to speed, they're gone because of the portal. So there's got to be some ability to retain and just have time to just worry about on the field development versus someone being out the door for more money.
And Holgerson alluded to that in his press conference of just like, you got to keep your head on a swivel. You come right off the practice field and you got to be on the phone with, insert player here who has just shown up and needs to hear your pitch. And you've never even met the player. I mean, it's just absolutely
the world you don't want to live in is where, and think about Nebraska's offensive line, for example. Dana's like, look, they're not ready. Donnie says they're not ready. You got to go shopping. So you got to get some dudes on the offensive line for next season. Fine. you,
I wonder
you
how much
don't.
of that's motivational too. But continue.
Well,
Sorry.
Whatever the case may be, what you can't do is have them with you for another off season and then lose them at some point next fall, right when it's almost their turn. They've worked hard to earn it. And then, because the market's so crazy, all right, I've never started, but I'm a 3-year guy that played at Nebraska. I'm ready to go kill it. Now I'm leaving you because it's an insane world marketplace for a left tackle. I mean, that's the nightmare.
Even Borkercher, right? To me, that is the one. Just somebody who presumably has the loyalty to Nebraska, former walk-on. That one just really kind of made you sit up and realize what's happening, right? He figured he was more valuable on the open market than Nebraska could pay to kind of retain him.
Well, he's more valuable at a new place versus his old place because his old place clearly wasn't playing the guy enough.
That's not a. I think value is important there, but monetary value might not be the place to look at it with Borkercher.
Yeah.
In terms of value to a football team, other football teams are going to value him more.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to describe Nate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, these decisions that are being made, you probably have to look at their comfort level in their position group room with their coach, who's there.
Right.
I think Nate Borkercher will play in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a good ball player.
Right. But here he is. Yeah. Right. He wasn't, featured in the offense under Satterfield, who happens to be the tight end position coach as well. And it seems like, we don't know, but Satterfield going to be retained as the tight end coach? I don't know. Because you're hearing Holgerson talk him up. Thinks he's a great coach at tight ends, giving him a good idea.
Talking him up so somebody hires him.
And he's one of the rules guys too. He's still here right now.
So he's got one more year on his contract. Barthel and Foley's contract end at the end of this month.
Is Quentin Ives going to help that Barthel contract? Let's talk about Quentin Ives. And he is now suddenly thrust into the depth chart. Recruit out of the Northeast a couple years ago, 6'2", 210-ish type. I would say he's the modern day build equivalent of like a Clinton Childs. It's just kind of, he's a little taller, thick, runs maybe a little too upright is kind of what you've seen. He was sort of a project guy. Is he a guy, Gary, where you kind of have to flash back to bygone eras where, no, good athlete, pretty good athlete, well put together, maybe just doesn't have a lot of football experience, doesn't have a lot of football sort of IQ yet, kind of learning the sport and a developmental project, but physically has the tools and we could see him be a contributor? Or is it like, we're out of bodies, so Ives, you're up?
I think they're out of bodies.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that depth chart, like Ramirez going to get some run. Emmett will get some run. Yeah. I mean, we really don't know much about Ives. He's a tall running back, but I don't know.
They put him at kick returner this year, right?
Yeah.
And you remember all those huge returns he did.
I don't think they're concerned about the running back room.
Can I ask the question so you look at the room, you got Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson, Jamarian Parker.
But Mekhi Nelson's the guy, he's some sort of practice legend at this point.
And Jamarian Parker, Connor Booth. Could you argue? I know in terms of name value, that room might not have it, but in terms of a going into a season, the way that guys are going to have roles within the offense, like Emmett Johnson's going to be the bell cow. Ives probably going to be your short yardage power back. Jamarian Parker is the guy that probably has more similar traits to Emmett Johnson.
He's going to be a fun piece for
a rotational true freshman piece. Like it makes more sense to rotate that guy. But in terms of like the roles that you have, it might not have the name appeal, but could this running back room be better from an efficiency point of view because of the way that guys are going to fit into roles?
I think so.
You're going to define the roles too.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if that's why this coaching staff behind the scenes feels better about this running back room, because I think guys have more defined roles and they're going to fit the roles better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not like they were pushing Dowdell out, but they weren't really pursuing any running backs, and they still aren't. Someone maybe falls into the lap. So I think Makai Nelson, everybody raves about him.
Yeah.
And he just,
What gives?
remember he got here late at a prep school. And so they had to physically, help his body. But everybody you talk to that watches him practice will say, hey, here's a guy to keep in mind later down the road is Nelson, that running back. Physically, he's got the tools, and he's caused some problems on the scout team. So, I'm with Elijah. I think they have a comfort level in that running back room, but that running back room has to make a step up. It's time for Nebraska to start producing NFL running backs again.
Nope.
What about Connor Booth?
Doubt.
What about Connor Booth? At a Class C1, I believe it was. Dominated Class C1. Got hurt towards the end of the year. I think he broke rushing records, all those things. Gary, I know you cover high school football quite a bit in the Metro, but I don't think that extends to wherever the hell Connor's from.
No, he's from Wahoo. So he's from Bishop. He's from Bishop Newman. He's
Western Nebraska. Then
is he somebody who could help you in the return game before he gets on the field? Oh man, hey, Wahoo compared to Omaha, Western Nebraska.
Yeah,
you drive by Wahoo and you go by Lincoln, and then you hit the Colorado border. Just ask any Omahan.
Basically.
No, he's a guy. He's someone that, gosh, we've seen those Nebraska high school running backs that put up huge numbers that come to Lincoln and then it's disappear. Like Jalen Bradley is a prime example. He had a monster year at Bellevue West and just didn't work out in Nebraska. I think his priorities changed on other things. But he's somebody who he's going to work hard. He's not going to let people go, oh, you're just a white running back from Nebraska. Step aside. He'll be in there battling. I wonder if he gets on the field in other areas sooner than he does in a running back rotation. But he may be a guy because he's got good football IQ. You can just kind of tell it. And he's also got good hands. So he may be an ideal guy for Holgorsen, who likes the running backs that can run, but also can catch. That's why Emmett Johnson is right now really appealing to a Holgorsen in an offense.
Is Parker just a more fluid Emmett Johnson, Jamarian Parker?
That might be the best way to describe it. I think he's better than Quan Lacey, and I love Quan Lacey when he came into Nebraska. I think he is. So you forget about, we do this in recruiting. We forget about the guys that have been committed a long time, and then they sign, and you're like, oh yeah. We get all enamored with the guys in the fall that are Nebraska's battling whoever. That was a really good pivot from losing Lacey in the last recruiting class. He's going to be one to watch. I think he gets on the field really, really soon when he gets to Lincoln.
And I think it says something about Parker that Nebraska was not going after Lacey this time in the portal. That was not a guy that they were.
You like him better.
That says something about Parker and what they think they have in him. Smooth is the word to use with how he plays football. He looks smooth on a football field with how he totes the rock. And that's a
Sharpie, thought on today's playoff schedule. You like any locks?
I like Penn State. I know that the environment won't be as happy as they were hoping, but I don't think SMU sees tight ends like Warren, and I think physically in the trenches, Penn State will find a way. I love Jennings. I think SMU is scary because of their billionaire boosters. They aren't going to let SMU football slip, and SMU is going to be a power because there's a lot of money. Facilities are good. They got the right people. They're in Dallas, but today they're playing Penn State, and I worry about SMU had some turnover issues late in the year, and I think that comes back to bite them today. I think it's a line of scrimmage game, and I think Penn State wins. That would be my lock. The other ones, I mean, the one that nobody's really talking about is Clemson in Texas. But then tonight, it is a referendum on Ryan Day. And don't we love watching Ohio State games when every single play is, oh, Ryan Day's going to get promoted. He's going to get a raise. Oh, no, he's going to get fired. Now it's 3rd down and 10. But have you guys, this is the thing. First and foremost, can you imagine if we were waking up this morning after sitting in the stands at Memorial Stadium last night for a home playoff game, what that would have been like? Yesterday, or whenever it happens, will be a national day off or a statewide day off in Nebraska. That'd be pretty friggin' cool.
Well, to talk about the morning after, though, you'd have to would Nebraska put together a Notre Dame type performance or an Indiana type performance?
That's fair. But have you guys seen from a program that is world famous more loser energy than what's coming out of Columbus this last week?
They are in their own head, man, and the pressure is ramped up and amped up, and they could still go win the whole damn thing, and doesn't matter. You didn't beat Michigan this year.
Saban went off on Ohio State fans yesterday on game day.
He is miserable. Saban did lose it. He pulled the grenade pin on him, man.
Well, he almost lost it on Shane Gillis, but that was one of the best moments ever in game day.
Yeah.
Indiana, or what is it? Alabama Jones.
Yes.
Oh, the SEC's never paid players.
Meanwhile,
you know Shane Gillis played college football? Fun fact.
Huh, for who?
He briefly was at Army.
Okay.
And then transferred to was it Val?
Transferred out of Army? Isn't that
I learned this when I was at Air Force last year. You don't have to make a commitment till after your second year.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hence Matt Slauson. That's why Matt Slauson showed up from Air Force.
Yeah.
A while ago. Okay.
I just found Shane Gillis's recruiting profile: 6'4", 275-pound offensive tackle, committed to Army.
Does he still have eligibility? Nebraska needs a tackle body. My God.
Did he go Holy Cross? It was some small school after that where he went for like a half year and then quit.
Holy Cross had an amazing wide receiver a long time ago. I can't remember his name.
Gordy Lockbaum. He was Travis Hunter before Travis Hunter was born.
And then there was another guy that made the Jets. That was from Holy Cross.
I'm out on Holy Cross.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
We could. Do you guys want to turn this into dudes just naming Holy Cross football players?
No, he opened the door.
I thought he was.
He opened the door. Well, there was one of them that was Holy Cross, and he opened the door. They opened the door for like Edelman and the short slot, the short Caucasian slot.
Yeah, Wayne Corbett's from Hofstra.
Sneaky athletic is how we describe him.
Yeah, coach on the field. Yeah. Kind of
that's how some describe Connor Booth. Boy, he is sneaky athletic,
isn't he?
Does he remind you of Woodhead at all?
He's bigger though. Booth's big.
Yeah. I saw Booth in person when he played in the state final. You're right. He's bigger than Danny was when Danny was at North Platte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's taller, right? He's 5'11", something like that.
But whoever is in that running back room, it's time for Nebraska to start producing NFL running backs.
They had such a good long run, pun intended, of backs.
Well, look at guys. We got spoiled. I mean, we could go all the way back to I Back You, but we got spoiled to have Halou handed off to Rex to hand it off to Amir.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Really similar style backs too, actually, right?
And probably they need. I mean, there's some position groups which need to stop spinning. Like you can't have a guy that's now played for 3 different position groups or 3 different position coaches. You're at a school where they probably had the greatest running back coach ever in Frank Solich, that you've had a revolving door at running back. Mm-hmm. It's just not, they step on the field and they're talented. They probably need a little bit of coaching.
Yeah.
And maybe that comes with the OC overseeing the whole thing.
Was Brown coaching running backs from the get-go with Pelini? Ron Brown?
No, it was Beck.
Beck had running backs?
Mm-hmm.
He had Halou?
Well, that was Callahan. Callahan found Halou in Northern California.
But in Halou's big year, yes, Beck was the running back coach.
Yeah.
Got it. So Brown took over when? Because I know he coached Abdullah. It must have been pretty soon after.
Because I think
13?
Beck took over OC in 11, and then Ron moved to running backs coach in 11.
Because Coach Brown would have had Braylon Hurd,
Rex.
Remember there was the 3
and Amir.
Aaron
Green.
Yeah,
because
Green went on to transfer to TCU and had a nice end of his career. Hey, one other position, Coach. After Pavia's commitment and the comments that he made, Glenn Thomas is going to be the quarterback coach, correct?
That's what I feel like.
I'm working under that assumption.
Feels like it.
But if we're going under the Holgerson, Beck's, Glenn Thomas is doing a hell of a job. He also said the same thing about Sad at tight end, coach.
Mm-hmm. He hasn't mentioned Barthel by name.
No.
Too much. No. Yeah, but you do wonder if Satterfield is going to be a part of things next year. He's one of Rule's guys too. One of Rule's guys.
Well, he's not going to be making $1.2 million to coach tight ends.
No.
You go from 1.2 to maybe 3 or 275 a year, and maybe you go from your office to a cubicle. If you want to stay on, so be it.
I mean, they got a palace over in North Stadium. I mean, the crappy offices are probably still pretty good. Not North Stadium, sorry, but the new facility that was just created. Right.
Sharpie, Merry Christmas, bud. Happy New Year. We'll holler for the Average Joe pod for sure a couple of times, but
still waiting on that invite.
Are we going to do a show next Saturday?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was
leading to the Pinstripe Bowl. Okay.
Yeah, I was getting there.
All right.
Well, we'll have the weekend edition a week from today. Kraynak, we got to get you that link sent. We got to get Kraynak in for the Average Joe.
The email's been open this whole time. It's been open this whole time. Yeah. By the way, Nebraska, Murray State basketball. One last thing. Hawaii.
Nebraska hasn't played forever.
I know.
I mean, they played last Friday against Indiana.
Do you have your Murray State versus Nebraska in Hawaii shirt ready to go?
The Racers?
I do not, but Nebraska, Loyola of Chicago, who was going to be the toughest test, I think, for Nebraska. Now, Murray State's not bad. Loyola Chicago's been hit with some injuries that they're not the same team they were 2 weeks ago that they might see on Christmas Day. It's important for Nebraska to go 3-0 in this tournament. Now Nebraska might be in a spot, guys, where they just need to avoid those bad losses.
No more
and
Sparty.
Find and hold serve at home, and then grab one of those sexy wins on the road, and then because the Big Ten may get 11 teams in. But you got to stay away from bad losses right now to finish out the year, which includes the 30th against Southern at home.
Yep.
But this is like a tradition, watching Nebraska play in Hawaii over Christmas.
Isn't it? I can remember growing up.
Good though, because the Nebraska played in the Maui, whatever it was called, a long time ago. But they played the Fab Five. I remember listening to it on the radio.
Oh, that's right. How'd that go? I'd imagine the
Fab
Five
right around that 8 to 10 point difference, and then Jalen Rose threw a half court alley-oop to Weber, who slammed it behind his head, and it didn't end well. I think it was probably an upper 20 point loss. I think North Carolina was part of it too. I remember staying up late to listen to it, man. It was.
I went out there. Tron Lou played out there.
Oh, you went out?
Yeah.
Nice.
So it used to be like Nebraska every 4 or 5 years would end up in Hawaii. Maybe you remember when they used to in football. This is pre-Elijah. When they would go out and T.O. would give them a reward at the end of the year, and they'd play Hawaii periodically for that last game of the season before the bowl.
Devaney do this too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so it's before my time, but on my high school marching band trip out to Hawaii, our bus driver also at one point was a bus driver for the Husker football team, and he thought it was very cool to have a band.
Whoa!
Yeah, small world.
Wow.
So I think they did Hawaii in 72 and in 82. Those were the two.
I think 82 was the one he was the. It was T.O. era. I know that.
What instrument did you play?
I played the trombone. I quit after sophomore year. I got my trip and I went, I'm out.
Was that all it was for you? It was just the trip?
Lied you to the portal looking for a new instrument.
I did the Southeast basketball band was legit. I really enjoyed that. But the marching around, I was also playing football, and it didn't make no sense. So I got my trip and I went, all right, I'm out.
So were you one of the guys that when it was halftime, you went and grabbed your instrument, and you got on the field and you were playing the trombone?
I was not going to be that guy, so I quit the marching band.
Oh, you could. I got you.
Yeah, I made it to the lower levels of football. Was going to be on the JV varsity squad, and went.
Hey,
I don't think this whole band thing's for me.
Do you still have a trombone?
I do. Yeah, I can still play it actually.
Can you bring it in sometime and do that?
Yeah.
No, especially if we're talking about bad things, you can wah, wah, right? You can kind of add sort of sound effects.
Elijah, do you still Family Guy feel?
Do you still have your Southeast jersey?
High school jersey?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I still have my old helmet.
Did you let your girlfriend wear it and never got it back?
You think I had a girlfriend?
I
would hope. That's what most dudes from Southeast have. Sometimes they're 25 going to Southeast.
Easy.
Oh, God. Oh, good God.
It happens.
No, it doesn't. It's not supposed to.
Oh my
That guy's in jail now, so that's thank God for that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that whole story.
We don't get that stuff in Omaha, Mark. I mean, we don't have like, Val Midwest from Pius or, Mr. Impersonator going to Southeast. We don't get that stuff here. We just got guys like Xavier Watts who goes to from Omaha Burke to Notre Dame and ends up being back-to-back years a consensus All-American.
Yeah, how did that
Omaha's just a little Omaha's a little more
did-
wholesome than Lincoln.
Let me ask you this. How did Watts get out of all? I mean, it's Notre Dame. I get it. But what do you remember about Nebraska's place in his recruitment? Because he's supposed to be a wideout and he flipped to safety, but he's been a 2-time All-American. He's going to be a first-round pick. He's been awesome at safety.
I think it was. So, little backstory. I do know X-Man and his dad, Jeff. Great story. His dad was shot when they were living up in Minneapolis. He's in a wheelchair. Great family. The power of Notre Dame. Brian Kelly was the head coach at Notre Dame when they were recruiting X-Man. And Notre Dame, like, he was a priority. And they really, really went after him. And, I think Xavier wasn't comfortable with Nebraska. And he also kind of wanted to get away from home. Henrich and Hickman were at Burke at the same time. They were a little bit older, so Nebraska had secured them. He just kind of wanted to get away. And as Schmidt was saying, his career at Notre Dame didn't change until he got a position change. And he's the last 2 years has been one of the best defensive backs in college football.
Yeah, God.
And probably you would venture a back into the first round or a top of the second round pick.
Guy can tackle, and he is, and this is a name I hate to comp, but he is Mike Brown-esque when it comes to turnovers and big moments.
Right. Yeah. He's a little bigger, taller.
Yeah. But just the pick sixes.
Yeah.
He is pick six king, man.
Yep.
With what they've done. So
he's got some savvy. That's out of the ones that got away, he has to rank right up.
Well, did it come down to Nebraska taking Betts over Watts?
Yes, and so there's a little bit of that, and that's a great point. So when Betts committed to Nebraska, it really caught him off guard. We didn't know this commitment was coming at this time.
That can't happen anymore.
No, but you're right. They basically put it out there as, hey, we've got this many spots. Whoever grabs them, you're in. But I also think he just kind of wanted to get away from home.
Well, you picked right.
And let's be honest. There is the power of Notre Dame. I mean, it's when you're a young kid there and you go on a visit there. Damn, I mean that kind of. It warms the echoes and wakes up the echoes, and you're like, well, I can see myself here. So I'm glad. And he stayed there because, they kind of yo-yoed him at the beginning of his career, wide receiver, defensive back, and he stuck with it. And he stuck through a coaching change. And look he's benefiting. He's playing against Georgia in 2 weeks. So good for him. I'm excited. And he's been balling out. So I'm glad that people have gotten to see him. But you're right. That's one that got away. But again, I don't think Nebraska is not for every in-state player.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's one that got away, but from my recollection, it was not one that Nebraska screwed it up. It was just one that got away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thankfully, with all that Nebraska's been through, Watts is thriving in playoff bound and NFL bound. He made the right call for himself.
Yeah. I mean, it opens up the door for more schools to come into Nebraska and go, man, if Notre Dame could find a Watts, is there another one in Omaha? Is there another one in in Kearney?
Sure.
It's actually great. It's great for in-state players. It might make Nebraska's job tougher, but it helps the quality of football, because Nebraska doesn't want to venture a long way away from campus. They got to go to the South, but they would like to, in that 500-mile radius, do what they do and get every player that they want in state. They don't want every player, but the ones they identified, Rule's been on a pretty good run of, those are the guys we want. We're going to get them.
The FCS, real quick, the FCS bracket today.
So, I'm hyped for that South Dakota State, North Dakota State game.
Well, I was going to ask. I mean, it just says there's a lot of Metro and Nebraska guys that dot those rosters. Any that we should be on the lookout for in particular? I haven't really followed FCS football too much, but any Nebraska kids that are worth checking out today?
It
and
screams very loudly that
quarterly?
your FCS Final Four is 3 or 4 in your 500-mile radius. They have stacked the roster with incredibly talented football players that probably not everybody can come to Lincoln or go to Iowa or go to Ames or go to Minnesota. But those coaching staffs have a really good history of lines of scrimmage guys playing on Sundays.
I'll give you 3 from North Dakota State. Cole Payton, who won a state title at Westside, backup quarterback. Marty Brown, I call him Marty. He probably is identified as Charmar, went to prep. So he redshirted last year.
That's
He
right.
is having one of the best freshman years in FCS as a running back. And then Jamel Williams' son, Jackson, was a great two-sport athlete, baseball and football at Millard West. Nebraska really didn't recruit him at all, and North Dakota State was on him from the jump. He has had a great year in Fargo. So those are three.
He was
three
playing
guys.
two-way. He's going to play two-way.
Yeah, he's going to play
there,
baseball.
too.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
But
where do they have
those
him at right now? What position?
he's playing wide receiver, but he is involved in their return game. But think about it. This is kind of, Nebraska. I give credit to Rule's staff that recruits in state, whether it's Ed Foley or particular coaches that they want to grab a top prospect. They don't burn bridges for guys that turn them down because they're thinking about the bounce back.
Yeah.
Hey, you were a really great quarterback in high school in this state. We wish you luck. That's your choice. But remember, if we can ever help you out, let us know. 2 years later, that quarterback who threw for 10,000 yards in Nebraska is going, man, I kind of want to come close to home. And Nebraska's saying, you know what? We already know about you. Let's chat. So, kind of like when these FCS guys, and they didn't recruit Marty Brown. They people wanted to recruit Jackson Williams. Cole Payton didn't return Frost calls the morning after they won the state title. But there's still that door that's open that, why not? If you're playing at South Dakota State, North Dakota State, and of late South Dakota, and you're performing well, man, you could come to Nebraska and play. I mean, if you're a good player, you can play. You can play nearly everywhere. The only holdback would be the physicality.
Yeah, interesting. Sure. Those are 3 good names to watch. Yeah.
Sharpie will
but it's not
holler.
going to. But the problem is, it's not going to be outside where it's going to be bone chilling cold. It's going to be in the Fargo Dome.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be okay.
But watch the game in Montana. I imagine there might be a little white stuff on the field out in Missoula.
Yeah,
snow.
they still throw it around. I mean, they love throwing the freaking football in the snow. It's nuts.
So you got 3. You got. I know we're going long today. 3 playoff games. You've got the 2 FCS games, and then we have 2 NFL games today as well.
Yeah, I'm not even watching the NFL today.
It's like football overload today.
That's because your team lost on Thursday night.
Screw the NFL for trying to invade.
That's a real quarterback play
Saturday.
on one ankle.
Wow.
Hey, how about Arrowhead Stadium? Did you guys get tickets, or are you just going to handle? We're press passes, and we're just going to be up in the box.
Press passes. Oh,
Come
we're
here,
gonna-
Hail Varsity Radio
tickets.
tailgate though. We're gonna make it.
Yeah, we have.
Really?
We're going to be doing we're down there Wednesday already. We got hotel a week ahead of time, so we're there Wednesday.
We got to talk about
Thursday.
hotel. I'm going to get the same one.
And then we'll be there. We'll do a parking lot show Thursday before. the game.
Nice. And Royals Tigers Friday and Saturday, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're in town.
That's why we booked the hotel room earlier in the week because we saw that and went, there's no way they could have a Husker game and a Royals game.
They're not going to make Nebraska
same day.
Cincinnati 11 a.m. kick on Saturday. That's a night game. So yeah.
Yeah, so we got that early week hotel room and that paid dividends.
$80.
Get a little Slaps barbecue to cater it. We'll be fine.
Done.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then, but I wonder who won this week. The people that use the promo code KC Bear or the ones that use the promo code KC Husk.
Listen, that was a total disaster. Total disaster.
Was.
They started off with the code was KC Husker, and it just flat out didn't work. And Ticketmaster's site's ridiculous, anyways. It took about 30 minutes, and they emailed back like, "Oh, use this code." They didn't even apologize. They just acted like, "Oh yeah, this is the code." Like, yeah, what about the email you sent 25 minutes before? That was, come on, that was terrible, absolutely terrible. But you got some value seats. Do I not know something about Arrowhead Stadium where 16th row end zone? It's like $110. What's wrong in the end zone? Are those seats like terrible or something? Because they were significantly cheaper than anything on the sidelines.
No, you're also under the overhang of the 200 level. Yeah, they're not bad.
Yeah.
There's really not a bad seat in that entire stadium.
I also kind of prefer sitting in an end zone. I kind of like that view of it. It's awful whenever it's like way on the other end and you have to squint to see what's going on. But I kind of like being behind the play. I like being able to watch football from that angle.
You're an all 22 kind of guy. Same with hockey, by the way. You go see a hockey game live. Would you rather be on the sides or behind the goals?
Corner.
You got to be ringside.
Well, the thing is, you can't be corner low, or else you're going to get some weird like reflections off the glass. If you're going to be corner, you got to be like mid-level, a little bit up to avoid some of the weird lines of sight with the curved glass.
Yeah,
but
that's where my UNO ticks are.
I love the corner, like top of the lower bowl from the corners. One of my favorite places to catch an NHL game. Great view there.
Yeah, you think UNO is going to start scoring goals a little more, Gary? It's been a little bit of a struggle this year for him so far.
It has. I don't think that's going to change.
You don't
but
turn.
Thank
that
God
around.
they have a great goalie in Latovsky.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. Yeah.
Sharpie, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Appreciate
Christmas
you.
to you three, all of the great people that join us continually, all except for Sunday on Hail Varsity. Well, no, we're on Sunday now.
Yeah.
Jesus, Hail Varsity has taken over.
No.
Thank you.
It's the Average Joe Sunday.
Oh, yeah. It's the it's the spinoff.
Yeah. I wonder what that's like to be on that show. It's probably fun.
It is great. It is unbelievable, Mark. We'll send you the footnotes.
What vibe? How does it differ? What's the
we can swear
difference?
You don't watch? You don't
I do listen.
Yeah.
I do listen.
You want to
I'm
be
talking
on it
about-
if you haven't
I'm talking
partaken
about,
yet?
No. I'm talking about the strategy behind the scenes in terms of show prep and how it's done.
There's
I noticed
probably
there's an intro
more
where
show
everybody has
prep,
to
my
come
ass.
back. Life is show prep, right?
Yes, right. No,
Yeah.
I think there's more of a you veer off and you go off-roading more with the Average Joes.
There's
And I know we off-road here quite a bit, but we still are at least not going to get stuck.
Yeah, you have the uncensored nature of the Average Joe Sports Show as well, which kind of
more swearing.
Yeah. We're more McAfee on midweek.
Unfiltered is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
We're a little more unfiltered.
Like this is more like, I don't know.
Still has a radio feel to it.
Yeah, it has a radio feel.
Like last week, we told the story of whenever I got to shower with the Iowa State football team. That's not a story for here. That's a story for the Average Joe Sports Show. If you want to hear that story, go check out the Average Joe Sports
It's
Show.
a great tease.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Mark, you would not. I mean, it was explained a lot.
You got a lot of time off. I'm going to be catching up. I listen to a lot of them. I really do.
Hey, we're going to come out. Speaking of time off, one more thing. Kraynak, pick a steakhouse so I can come see you this week.
There is a new one now. There is
Okay.
a new steakhouse. I will not name them because
They have
no
not
free shout
advertised yet.
No
They are
free
out in
shout-out.
West Omaha.
It's the guy, and the
That one?
rumor has it. Unconfirmed reports say the person who's opened this restaurant used to run the Drover's Kitchen for years. Years. So picked up a few secrets.
Whiskey
Everybody knows-
soaking.
Oh damn! I just gave a shout out to Drover.
That's
Not
okay.
the
We
new-
love them.
Yeah. Drover, you're welcome to sponsor. The whiskey steak. So there's a new one that's got potential. That's got potential. We can
I'll
do
tell
that.
you, hey, I'm not inviting myself here, but I did do all right at a poker night last night. So Papa's got steakhouse money for a week.
Nice.
Elijah.
and
Elijah's like, I
found-
like steak.
Yeah.
And I
This is
found
the invite ourselves show.
I found
Get
a
on the show.
Meritar winner. One of our listeners gave us a futures bet that hit. That we can add that to the pool of money, Elijah, when we cash in next Friday.
Okay.
So we all have steakhouse money.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds like
So
y'all are intrigued.
it's a date on Friday.
Isn't that cool, Gary? Like they're coming into our town and they're treating us to steak.
I know you guys get, but they're from Crime Town, so they're okay. They're hardened. They'll be able to handle Omaha.
That's true. This is true.
On that note,
All right,
Merry
enjoy
Christmas,
it.
everybody.
Christmas. Appreciate you. We'll talk next time.
Happy
with
Hanukkah,
the
Kraynak.
Weekend
Thank you. Appreciate it.
edition of Hail
Appreciate
Varsity. Be good.